Hello, one and all. Mike Martz, the coach, the Hall of Famer, St. Louis Hall of Famer. Well, are you in the Fresno State Hall of Fame too, Michael?
The Fresno State doesn't have one. The city of Fresno over the years has put out some just terrific athletes. I'm in it not as an athlete, but for coaching. But yeah,
Yeah.
I am.
Do you get the key to the city with that, or what do you?
No, but I tell you what, those induction ceremonies are really something to see. The big crowd, everybody's dressed up, and they do a real nice promotion for it. But some of the athletes, like I said, the Olympic athletes, the baseball, football. There's a lot of good players who come out of Fresno, the city of Fresno.
And over the years, they've had a hell of a football program at Fresno State. Anyway,
Right.
I'm JT. If you're a football fan, this has got to be your favorite time of year. I love the divisional weekend, which we just hit. It's to me, one of the best weekends in sports. And now we finally got it down to the Final Four and the conference championship this weekend. Mike, I thought the divisional games were even on Saturday, where the scores were a little lopsided. They were very, very interesting, and then some couple of great games and suspenseful games on Sunday. So let's get right to it. Saturday, the early game, we saw the Chiefs beat the Texans 23-14. We both picked the Chiefs. The Texans were a tough out, though. One of the things that surprised me the most about that game, Mike, was how well they ran the ball against Kansas City. They averaged over 5 yards a carry and had 100 and nearly 150 yards rushing, but it wasn't enough. We've talked much of the season about that offensive line in front of CJ Stroud, and he got sacked eight times, and they just couldn't get enough offense going by the end of the game. CJ Stroud's left knee was messed up. What did you come out of that game with?
Well, the glaring thing about it is the offensive line, like you said. If they can get that repaired in the offseason, Mixon, get him going now with a good offensive line. You can't expect him to do much, but he did obviously get the yards. Whenever they're in a pass rush mode and playing coverage, you need to be able to run the football like they did.
Right.
They're basically daring you to run the ball. Of course, they did, and they did a good job with it. But and that's as athletic as CJ is, he just couldn't avoid those sacks. The other part of it is when they blitz him, you just got to have better answers, and of course they did do that. You just got to have better answers. They put so much pressure on you, talking about the Chiefs on defense,
Right.
You just have to have good answers for that.
Yeah. I guess they could have maybe a little better depth. I'm sure every team's looking for depth, but you look at the face of it, you got Joe Mixon, who's a fine running back. You've got Tank Dell. The problem with him is he was hurt the whole time. Nico Collins, the tight end, is pretty good. It seems like don't you think their skill players good enough? Or
Yeah, no question they are. Like I said, I think it's a real good football team. Defensively, they're a good team. They just need that group of offensive line, and I think they need to be a little bit more committed to run the ball to protect that guy too, and use it and rely a little bit more on play action on first and second down, probably.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of step down for CJ Stroud, but he's running for his life. My one image of many of their games is him scrambling to his right because he didn't have pass protection. But don't you think? I think you've always liked CJ Stroud. He looks legit.
Yeah, he is. I think he's a terrific talent. One of the best ones we've seen for a while, to be honest with you. And I think over time, if they can protect him, he's going to be an elite player.
Yeah. So one of the keys to the game, it's been a great year for kickers, but Ka'imi Fairburn, the kicker, he missed a field goal. He missed a PAT, had another field goal block. They had a 15-play, I think it was 92-yard drive, something like that, to start the third quarter, and it ended in a missed field goal by Fairburn, and that seemed to take some of the wind out of Houston there, Mike.
It does. The only good thing about it is they used up so much time on the clock and kept KC out the field. But you put a drive together like that and then miss a field goal. That is just absolutely devastating to the psyche of a team.
Yeah, and we talked about this, I think, last week on Talking Football about how it seemed like kickers are missing more. Maybe their legs are tired this time of year. You said they spend too much time warming up on game
I
day.
promise you they do. You know, every team I've ever been on, all those kickers go out and they just kick way too much in pregame.
Yeah, yeah. Travis Kelce, he kind of discovered the maybe the time off help. Remember, a lot of the Chiefs core players didn't play in the last game, and then they have the bye week, so a lot of them had not played since their Christmas Day game. Anyway, he was 7 for 117, had a touchdown on just 8 targets. So and some yards down the field after the catch, which we hadn't seen for him. Patrick Mahomes has never lost a divisional round game. He's 7-0. Meanwhile, the entire Houston Texans franchise, which hadn't been around that long, but since the beginning of the century, they've never won a divisional game. They're 0-6. Andy Reid reached a huge milestone, 4th coach to reach 300 wins. Michael, what do you think of Andy as a coach?
Well, he's probably the best coach in the league. Has been for some time. There's so many things about him. Character-wise, he's a guy that stands above everybody else. He's one of the nicest people you ever meet. He really is. He's so relatable, so easy to meet and talk to, and I'm sure players love him. Very smart guy. Really understands both sides of the ball at a different level. And I think he's probably the standard for the league. You know, if you want to be a coach, you could take a good look at him first.
I gotta ask you about the very first play of the game. Chris Boyd, this was a kickoff, a long kickoff return by the Chiefs. I'm guessing you saw this play. Chris Boyd made a tackle, probably saved a touchdown. I think he thought they'd recovered the fumble, but he tossed his helmet on the field, so he gets a 15-yard penalty. You can't take your helmet off on the field. And I guess the special teams coach, Frank Ross, gives him an earful on the sideline. And the player, Chris Boyd, shoves the coach really hard. Now, heat of the moment, you see kind of stuff like that. That was a pretty extreme, though. I mean, that coach got shoved pretty hard. What do you make of that?
You know, in the heat of the moment, that's why when plays like that happen, you got to bite your tongue a little bit, let things cool off before you approach them.
If you're the coach?
If you're the coach. You got to be a little bit careful. And that was a dumb thing. One of the dumbest things I've ever seen in the NFL, what he did.
Yeah.
So selfish. And that's probably what triggered everything because it's such a selfish act. He goes down, makes a really good play, and then he's going to celebrate the fact they didn't get the ball. And then to take his helmet off and throw it like that, it's just I don't think I'd keep a guy like that on the roster, to be honest with you. I know he's a good player. He does a lot of good things for him, but
right.
You know, that hurts your locker room, hurt the team.
And here's the thing, he was so busy celebrating. I mean, maybe he has a chance, maybe not. He's has a chance to recover the fumble, you know?
Yeah, no question.
He's busy celebrating. Now, to Boyd's credit, he did apologize afterwards, but that was strange. Now, I'd be remiss before we move on to the next game if I didn't ask you. You know, everybody's all and still up in arms about some of the calls. I think of 2 calls at roughing the passer, 2 Texans collide, right. And they kind of hit each other. They really didn't hit Mahomes.
Yeah.
And the other one, Mahomes goes out of bounds, and it's clear that he's acting. He gets shoved a little bit, and you'd think he'd got he'd gotten shot or something the way he went down. There aren't, you can't get penalized for embellishment in the NFL. Is there such a rule like that? Or
no, but they ought to have one. I mean, it's just a statement of character to me. It just really, that more than anything else, and I'm a big Chief fan, and Andy Reid and Mahomes, I think, is a great player. But when that happened, it was so bad, bad.
Yeah.
You know, you're taking advantage of a rule that's designed to protect you.
Right.
And then you're going to do that. That kind of smacks of the New England Patriots with Belichick, you know.
Right. And they have that rule in hockey, and I've seen it my half a dozen years covering the NHL. I saw it several times in a year where a player gets penalized for embellishing a play. Hell, it happened in the conference semifinal, the West Conference semifinal against Dallas, where a Dallas player got penalized for embellishment. So yeah, maybe that'd be something for the competition committee to come up with. Now, the late game on Saturday, Mike and I's hearts are heavy because our team, especially Mike's team, but the Lions are my favorite team for a variety of reasons. They go down to the Commanders 45-31. Mike, I think we all had a lot of respect for Washington and maybe increasing respect. I didn't expect this to be a cakewalk, but boy, 45-30. I was just surprised how they were able to almost score at will against Detroit.
And played a lot of man coverage. I think it just exposed their defensive front and their inability to get pressure on the quarterback. Mm-hmm. Now, he's a different cat, granted. I mean, he is different, but, there are just some plays that they made some plays that you shouldn't be able to make. And then, of course, the pick six. And by the way, on that pick six down around the 10-yard line, the quarterback gets a helmet-to-helmet and not just knocks him out. That should have been called.
Oh, on the trying to make a tackle on the interception return.
Yeah, he got a blocker down there, and he just absolutely put his helmet right on his forehead, And that's not – I mean, that should have been called, wasn't. But, you got to give credit to Washington. They're just on fire right now,
Yeah, they really are. That interception, he had Laporta open. Goff had Laporta open underneath. You could see it clear as day even on the TV replay, and it's great. I'm sure you like quarterbacks to be aggressive, but sometimes you just got to take what's there, don't you?
Well, the ball took off on him. He just missed it. The guy he's throwing the ball to just somewhat sailed over his head. Now, whether you made the throw and catch, I don't know, but there's a tight window there. I think if he balls down on the chest, he probably makes the play. But yeah, I saw what you saw. Laporta's open underneath, and he just got a little greedy on it.
Yeah, that definitely changed the momentum. That pick six. Oh, yeah. What was it? Washington was up 17-14, and that made it a 24-14 game. And it seemed like the Lions were chasing the game the entire way. But the Lions always seem to have an answer. Washington was up only 31-28. They were stopped for no gain on 3rd and 2 early in the fourth. They're down in the low red zone. And so they're stopped on 3rd and 2. Maybe Dan Quinn goes for it anyway, but Detroit had 12 men on the field. And so they got a first down. They end up scoring a touchdown. Mike, who you have so many coaches on an NFL staff right now. Is there one coach that's responsible for having the right personnel out there or making sure there's just 11 guys out there?
You have a guy on the sideline that's doing the substitutions, and the substitutions are most often matched up for the personnel that you see the offense bringing on the field. Mm-hmm. So if you're in regular personnel, they've got regular defense. They go to 4 wide receivers. You go to your dime package, and maybe from the play before, they thought there was just a mix-up on who's on the field. So the communication between the players too is responsible ultimately. But you got a guy substituting over there.
Yeah. So, and I know there's obviously a lot going on, but interesting matchup of coaches too. The two Dans, in some ways they're alike because they're both very aggressive on 4th down. Dan Campbell was 2 for 2 in the Lions on 4th down. Dan Quinn they were 3 for 4. It was a fun game to watch, wasn't it?
No,
because you I know you love Dan Campbell. Have you texted him or anything since the game or no?
No, I just let it go for a little bit. I'll talk to him here in another week or so. I'll text him, but no, that was hard. I just wanted them to win so bad.
Yeah. Magical season. Do you think their Super Bowl window still open? They lose both their coordinators. We'll get into that in our middle segment, the Ask Mike segment. But what do you think? Should they still be a power for a while here?
Oh, absolutely. They'll address their issues in the defensive line, and getting their veteran back too. So they've got to bolster the defensive line and give that 2 platoon deal so they can roll guys in there. You got to be able to put pressure on the quarterback with that front. They've addressed the corner situation. That's fine. They got 2 really good backers inside. They're doing great there. the Achilles to this team now is that defensive front. They lost 2 starters during the season, didn't get them back, and that's really affected them.
Yeah. So we'll see how that goes for Dan Campbell, but interesting. All season long, the NFC North was the division, and so we end up in the NFC conference title game, and none of them are left. It's the NFC East that has the 2 teams in the title game. Speaking of that, the early game Sunday, Eagles 28, Rams 22. Boy, Saquon Barkley, what a year he's had, and a couple games against the Rams. Remember, they played in the regular season. Barkley had 255 yards rushing. That was a opponent record against the Rams. Then he gets 205 in this game. So 2 games against the Rams, 460 yards for Saquon Barkley, and a couple long TD runs in this one, 78 and 62 yards. And then Jalen Hurts had a 44-yard touchdown run to end the game. The Eagles' second NFC title game in 3 years. Mike, I don't know. I think the snow kind of helped the Eagles. It was snowing pretty heavily. I mean, I think it helped their running game. I in my mind, maybe I'm just imagining this, and tell me if I'm wrong. I think maybe the Rams pull this off if it's not snowing as heavily as it is.
Well, the last 2 plays on offense were sacks. They just went backwards, talking about the Rams, and they were in position to go down and, get it done. They just couldn't, so and they turned the ball over too. Turnovers are always going to be bigger than playoffs, but rushing the ball doesn't score points, a lot of points, and I think, he had a real nice big run there, but that doesn't bother me so much as you're in a position on offense to win the game at the end like that. That's the part that bothers me, and the fact that the back fumbled and they turned the ball over,
Right.
And he's such a good player. They got such a good quarterback that I just felt like if they could protect him, he'd have gone down and scored.
Yeah. They lost fumbles by Kyren Williams, the running back from St. Louis, Vianney High School, and then Stafford. Both Matthew Stafford lost a fumble. Right. Both resulted in Jake Elliott field goals, and it's a 6-point game. That's the difference in the game. They might be playing in overtime, but Stafford still, 324 yards passing, and it looked like he had sore ribs. Remember, he got hit pretty early, but he didn't miss any time, and you hope he keeps playing. I don't hear. Do you hear any talk? It's not like he's thinking of retiring or anything.
He's in his prime to me. But that team has won more games than on paper when you look at them they should have really won. Defensively, they got a kind of a no-name defense in some respects.
Who's that? The Rams?
Yeah. And he just does a great job. McVay does a great job.
Yeah. I still think overall on the roster, they're one of the youngest teams in the league still, and a very young defense. I really thought they'd go way downhill without Aaron Donald, retiring, but and their defense maybe wasn't quite the same. It's still pretty good though.
And they just don't know they're good. They're not supposed to be good. And they are. They just need speed on offense. They need a burner over there, at least one outside that scares people to death and take the top off the defense. If they got to have that.
Yeah, because Nakua is really he'd be like a power forward in basketball. I mean, he's a big, strong guy, but he's not and once in a while they find him down, but he's really not a takeaway like a burner threat, and neither is Cooper Kupp, And Kupp, he said after the. Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Cooper's he's that third down slot receiver kind of at this point in his career. Mm-hmm. And Nakua can get down the field, and he's got, for a big guy, he's got great feet. He can get in and out of cuts. I really like him. But you put Kupp in the slot, put Nakua on one side, and then put a burner on the outside. That's a whole different problem for defenses. And
we've talked about Kyren Williams. He's good, but he's not elite,
like I said, he's milked some of that talent. I'm amazed that they won as many games as they did with who they have.
Yeah. They also they sacked Jalen Hurts 7 times against a pretty good offensive line, so they were able to get pressure. So yeah, the Rams are done at 11-8. I think the NFC West is pretty much up for grabs. It'll be interesting to see how that division is next year. Okay, the heavyweight battle, the matchup we're all looking forward to was the Bills and the Ravens. You and I, Mike, both picked the Bills. I was leaning Ravens, and then on last week's show, as you talked about the Bills and why you liked them, you kind of talked me into going Bills. But boy, what a close game! 27-25, Bills over the Ravens, and the Bills finished the regular season 10-0 at home. And the Ravens with a great club, 13-6. I think we thought all along in the AFC it would be Bills, Ravens, and Chiefs all the way to the end, and one of those teams had to lose, and it turned out to be the Ravens. Anything about this game surprise you, Mike? Or
not really. I thought Lamar played well. I just think that the Bills team is a different team than what's been in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I think quarterback is a different guy right now. The coordinator does a great job with rushing the football. You know, I think their Achilles right now is a rush defense. You know, they've been hurt by teams that can run the ball, but teams that run the ball well generally don't score a lot of points,
right.
And that'll be in their behalf, I think.
Yeah. They did they got bludgeoned by the Ravens earlier in the season. They did a much better job on Derrick Henry. He had 199 yards rushing, Derrick Henry, against the Bills in the regular season. He had only 84 yards rushing in this one, but he did score a TD. Josh Allen continues to amaze me. He had a couple of touchdown runs. Yeah, Jackson had a couple turnovers, but you're going to expect maybe a turnover in a game. I know the margin of error can be thin in these types of games, but you know, he's 3-5 in the postseason. Do you think people are, there are some people saying, well, he can't win the big one. Do you think that's a little bit of an overreaction or no?
Yeah, it is. He certainly can. I just think that they were without Flowers too, and I think that was probably the difference maker for them in this game.
Yeah, definitely their big play guy. And poor tight end Mark Andrews, he had a great career. He drops that 2-point conversion that would have tied the game at 27-27, maybe sent it into overtime. They're only
I'll tell you this about that. He didn't give him the best ball to catch now.
No.
And that was
low, and he's moving backwards. So yeah.
He's trying to twist and turn and make that catch, and he could have made that a hell of a lot easier with the throw.
I'll tell you this too. Twice the Ravens went for 2-pointers. They were kind of chasing the points a little bit at 21-19 and at 27-20. They missed both times. Had they just kicked the extra point,
right,
they might still be playing. They'd be in overtime. So, and
I think that's a lesson to all those coaches. I mean, you get in that position, you just take the points until you get in the final minutes or the second half of the fourth quarter, whatever. Because you just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. So the Ravens are done. The Bills advance. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back with Ask Mike, and we'll ask him about the coaching carousel when we come back.
Let me get this straight. Graybar is a distributor?
Yep. For more than 150 years, we supported electrical and datacom projects all over the country.
So you can get me products wherever and whenever I need them?
Yep. Thanks to our expansive national logistics network.
For any industry?
Yep. From construction sites and industrial plants to schools, hospitals, and just about everything in between.
So you could say Graybar is much more than a distributor?
Yep, you could say that.
They really do it all.
Yep. When you need a hand powering, connecting, or maintaining your operations, join the thousands of professionals who rely on Graybar to help keep them up and running. Yep, Graybar does that.
We're back on Talking Football with Mike Martz. Mike, I don't see the picture of your little poster of the huddle with Marshall Falk. Where the hell are you?
Yeah, I'm in San Diego at our son's house. They had a vacation. We came out to babysit a little bit.
Okay.
A little 7-year-old granddaughter. So they're coming back tonight, and then we're going to stick around here for a little bit.
So you left us in the snow and the cold. Thanks, Mike.
So I played golf yesterday at 7:30 in the morning. It was 38 degrees in the course. When we finished, it was 82. Pretty big
82
jump.
degrees?
Yeah, when we finished, yeah.
I hate you, Mike. I hate you. What is it now? Did you say it was in the 50s before we
Oh,
came?
no, it's warm today. It'll be in the 70s, 77 or something.
Yeah.
And then the cold weather's going to come. They're going to get some rain, thankfully, for these fires out here on Sunday, I think. So it'll be in the 50s for a couple of days. We'll suffer through 3 days of that, and then it'll get warm again.
Yeah, yeah. Beautiful San Diego, the land of milk and honey. We're going to go straight to our Ask Mike question. It's for Nick from North County. I can't remember if Nick has had a question or not before here. And it's related to the coaching carousel. He asks, can it be a distraction to players or coach when it's assistants are interviewing for head coaching jobs during the playoffs? Now you had this with, I guess, Lovey, and what was it, 2003? Yeah. And you had the bye, so I guess during the bye week they can interview. And obviously it's germane to the Lions because they had both their coordinators get coaching jobs. What's that like?
Yeah, when you have a guy that an assistant coach like that is really highly regarded and thought of by the players, and the thought of losing him, it does affect you. Mm-hmm. I mean, it takes the air out of the bubble. I mean, just think of it's almost like death in the family, to be honest with you, if they're really good, really close. And I think both those coordinators are really close to their players, and of course Lovey, players loved him, and I think when he left, it was hard. It was hard on these guys. It was a big adjustment for them, but I think it's just an awful rule. I think they need to go back to, not being able. If you're in the playoffs, you can't be interviewed, and it's just tough luck the way it goes. I think if you're adamant about seeing a guy and wanting to hire him, then wait till it's all over with. And I think it did affect him to some extent. I really do. I'm talking about Detroit now. I just think it's bad. It's a distraction. It's just not necessary. Like I said, you get a coordinator that's really loved by the players, and all of a sudden they know they're probably going to lose him, and they find out that through the grapevine, because the players know before everybody whether the guy's been hired or not. So
yeah, they have a sense for it, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's nobody can keep a secret in the NFL. So I think everybody kind of knows that and can expect that. So when they go, it's just it's devastating. It can be anyway.
Yeah, and people might say, "Oh, cliche, they love each other," but I don't think the average fan has any idea how much time, especially in season, these people spend together. I mean, they spend so much. They probably see their coaches and the players, see themselves more than they see their families or their girlfriends or whatever, because it is a time-consuming job.
Well, when Dan took that Washington job, you can see the void left behind there with the Cowboys.
Right.
It's a personality that's not there anymore that they kind of count on, and that relationship. And winning teams are built on relationships. If you don't have those kinds of relationships, you're just not going to win.
Yeah, yeah. So the Lions lose Ben Johnson to Chicago, Aaron Glenn to the New York Jets. So they lose both their coordinators. I'm a little surprised Johnson stayed in division, but I guess he thought that was the best job, huh? I mean, there was a lot of smoke that he was going to the Raiders, or that the Raiders were really making a full court press. But if you're a top level offensive coordinator, who the quarterback is on the team you're going to, that would seem to make a big difference, or have a big say in where you land, right?
The first rule of thumb when taking a job as a head coach is, do they have a quarterback you can win with?
Yeah.
Or do they have the ability to get one? And when you look at those jobs, there's only one of them really, and that's Chicago. And he's going to be really, really good. Talking about Caleb, he's going to be a good player. And the other part of it is, they've solidified their administration. Their president now, of course, he worked for us at the Rams, Kevin Warren.
Mm-hmm.
He's good, and good GM, and that's a big part of it too. They're going to try to spend to the cap and make sure that get you the talent. And it's a talented team.
Yeah.
They just need to get a running back and some other things. But that's a good team just waiting to happen right now.
Well, their skill players aren't bad. Maybe better than not bad. Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and then the youngster Rome Odunze, tight end Cole Kmet's pretty good tight end. You're right. The running back DeAndre Swift, he was a big disappointment this year. Average only 3. I mean, he had a kind of middle of the season. He had a little renaissance, but only 3.8 yards a carry. You need to be.
Here's what I'd say about all the offensive guys. We're going into a situation like that where it was basically a clown show on offense in terms of what they're trying to do. They weren't coaching, prepared. It was just bad. So now you tell all those guys, all sins are forgiven. Everybody's got a chance. Everybody's fighting for to be a starter. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're in the Pro Bowl or not. And that's how you start out. You want to be on this team, you want to be a starter, you got to prove it.
Yeah. The offensive line, Caleb Williams sacked. We talked about it on a few shows. I think the 4th most sacked quarterback in the season in history. Is that a big area of emphasis?
No. Let me tell you about that. That's system and just a lack of coaching with the quarterback. I just would take that with a real grain of salt. They need to get a great offensive line coach in there, and they'll perform a lot better. Now, obviously, they need some help in the offensive line for sure. But as bad as it was, I look at them and attribute that a lot to just kind of not knowing what's going on and not having the good protections to match what they're doing on defense, and just a lot of just nonsense stuff that should be cleared up easily.
Is there some stuff Caleb Williams could do to avoid some of the sacks?
Yeah, he's got to get rid of the ball. But, when you call a play and he asks you, where's the ball supposed to go? Well, get it, just kind of get a feel for it and just find somebody open, that kind of approach, the kind of thing. What do you do as a quarterback? And he can get the ball out fast. He sees things well, and with a real well-defined and clear-cut system and everything is done appropriately, he'll be fine with that. He won't hang on to the ball. So a lot of the sacks are related to him and not kind of knowing where people are or not being sure about how deep this guy is. When you put it an offense, the receivers, the discipline of what they do is incredibly important to the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
If you're supposed to be at 16 yards but you're at 8 yards, and the quarterback, well, wait a second, he ends up holding the ball. So that has a lot of it too. So there's a lot of factors in those sacks that I would just discard. Forget about it and start from ground zero. Well,
that'll be must-see viewing to see how he does in Chicago and what's a very tough, as we know, NFC North. So Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator, he rejoins his old team. He goes to the New York Jets. Interestingly, Mike, they've had 7 coaches since the millennial, since 2000. 6 have been head coaches. 6 have been defensive coaches. When you're looking for a coach, are there factors that go into play, whether you want a defensive mind or an offensive mind? The Jets have gone almost strictly defensive coaches.
Yeah, I think if you get a real good coordinator, I don't think it really matters, to be honest with you. It just doesn't. Biggest problem for them is you make sure you get a quarterback, because Rodgers is done. That's the last guy in the world I put on the field at this point.
Wow. So you got to find a quarterback. You may have that fellow over at Minnesota, Sam Darnold, available. I don't know if the Jets go back there since they drafted him, but obviously they're pretty high in the draft order too. On paper, it doesn't look like at least they're saying, I don't know, they're saying it's not a great year for quarterbacks in the draft, but
probably not. But there's still some good ones in there that people don't know can play. That always happens in the league. You always get these Kurt Warner type, Brady. Those things happen all the time. You just got to be accurate with how you evaluate.
Yeah, and your original point, just to circle back, even if you hire a defensive-oriented head coach, just have him go out and hire a hell of a offensive coordinator, right? And that can solve it. Now, the other thing is our producer, Joe Roderick, pointed out before the show, it looks like, and who knows, this could change, or it could be decided over the next couple of days after our podcast is shown here. Brian Schottenheimer looks like the front runner to Dallas. He was with the what's with the St. Louis Rams for a while? What do you think about that hire?
It's hard to figure that one out because you let Mike McCarthy go, who's a proven winner, and won Super Bowl and won a lot of games for the Cowboys, to replace him with Brian Schottenheimer. Now, I'm sure Brian's a good coach. I don't know him. I know he's a good guy. I've heard a lot of good things about him from friends of mine, but in the coaching world. But it still makes you scratch your head. How does that work?
Right. It doesn't. If you're a Cowboys fan, I don't think you're going to be too excited about this. Troy Aikman made some very pointed comments about a lot of the coaches around the league don't think Dallas has a good job because you have an owner who, let's face it, he meddles. A lot of people think he's a general manager now, and he may. Who knows? Maybe he thinks he's the head coach there. That has to be a factor. Now, again, there's only 32 head coaching jobs. It's not like a McDonald's where there's one on every corner, but still, if you have some choices as a head coaching candidate, maybe Dallas isn't it because of this.
Well, one of the big factors now is they're just not very good. They just don't have a very good roster.
No.
They're just not very good, and I just don't think they'll be real good next year either. So, they just underachieved the first half on defense of the season. They came back a little bit and played better, and I think probably it's Dak's security blanket, Schottenheimer, which is good. That's fine. And they're keeping the same system. That's all real good. But, he might end up being just a great head coach. Andy, Reid took a job as head coach there in Philadelphia. He was the tight end coach at Green Bay. So who knows? Who knew Andy Reid at that point? So, obviously it can be a great hire. And I don't mean that it's not or can't be, but it does make you scratch your head because Mike has won for them. He's won everywhere he's been, and yet, that's it.
You talked about how the roster's constructed too. They have a ton of cap money tied up in Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, and not a lot of depth. Rico Dowdle, they developed kind of a running game as the season went along, but they didn't have a running game. They don't really have other receivers to complement CeeDee Lamb, and if you have,
I don't think they're very well coached on offense. To be honest, at the positions, the receivers play when they want to play. They don't play hard. They never have. The offensive line, it's kind of some on again, off again. I've always been a Dak Prescott fan, but they got to get it back in there to run the football. Right. They got to take a page out of the Rams. When the Rams had all that cap problem, so to speak, they collected draft picks and they hit on them. They hit on them, and they all became good players. So they're just going to have a great draft and collect as many picks as they possibly can.
Yeah. One other point I want to hit on, first off, the wrap a bow around the coaching carousel. If Dallas hires Schottenheimer, that leaves Jacksonville and the Raiders as a couple of the teams looking for head coaches. I'm a little surprised Jackson, unless they're waiting, they could be waiting on coaching candidates that are in the conference championship.
Probably Joe Brady, I would think.
With Jacksonville?
Yeah, I would think that he'd be a guy that, I don't know if they've even interviewed him, but he would be the obvious selection to me.
Yeah. And what do you think of Trevor Lawrence?
Good player. Yeah, he's a good player. He started off.
I think he would be a draw, wouldn't it? The chance to work with him.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of issues there in the sporting cast, and he didn't play very well at all coming down the stretch. I don't know what the issues were or why, but his first time in there, they didn't block anybody, and the system was bad. He didn't play good, and then when they made the change, he started getting coached, played well. They just got a lot of fill in the blanks down there. To me, they just need a really good offensive guy that can put it together for them on offense.
And if you're the Raiders, you need a quarterback. Plain and simple.
Yeah, you do. But you got a lot of things. Who's calling the shots there? Who's going to hire? Is it going to be Brady or is it going to be Mark Davis? That's just a mess to me. That would scare me to death, the Raider situation. Who are you answerable to as a head coach? Is it going to be Mark Davis, who obviously is the owner, or how much impact does Brady have in this? What's the direction? Who are you going to draft? Who's making the personnel decisions? Are you going to make him? Is Mark Davis going to make the personnel decisions? On and on and on. I mean, that thing is a scary proposition to me.
Sounds like if you went in for a coaching interview there, you'd have as many questions for them as they may have for you.
Yeah, you have to, unless you just are a guy that just want to be a head coach.
Yeah.
And you just take it however it is, and you just do the best you can,
Yeah, one last thing before we go to a break. I wanted to talk about, we have all these metrics, these analytics, but some of the time-honored, mileposts or fence posts, ways we judge games still stand strong. And one thing that I've noticed throughout the playoffs and over the weekend games in the division round were the teams that took care of the ball, Mike, are the teams that won the game. All 4 teams that won over the weekend, Kansas City, Washington, Philadelphia, and Buffalo, they did have at least one thing in common. That was zero turnovers. Meanwhile, Detroit was -5 against Washington. You're just not going to win if you're -5.
No.
The Rams were -2 against Philadelphia. Baltimore -3 against Buffalo. Taking care of the football is still a big thing. I know you still want to be aggressive on offense, but those turnovers can kill you.
So you have turnovers during the season, and I mean, you have 3 or 4 of them. You come back and you win the game. Kind of depends on who you're playing.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be a real good team, but you turn the ball over, you can still win. You get into the playoffs, these are good teams. They're all good teams now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you're playing some team that ends up being 3 and whatever, and you can come back off of that. And the playoffs, it's not going to happen. They're too good. That's why they're there.
Yeah, the margin of error is much less, and you can speak for this from experience. The Super Bowl 36 in the playoffs, the 2 games leading up to that, you guys didn't commit a turnover in that, and then -3 against New England, and still almost come back and force the game into overtime. But Ricky Prohl, that was his first turnover he'd had since he'd been with the Rams. I mean, sometimes
I think in that game, Jim, the pick 6 was a mental error by the right tackle.
Right.
And that should have never, ever, ever happened. And our starter was out. He's a guy that just kind of panicked. And but without any one of those turnovers, we win the game because they got all their points off the 3 turnovers.
Yeah.
The last one, we come out at in the second half, and they blitz us, and he goes to throw a slant to Torrey, who might score. I mean, the corner's so far off, and they painted the field for TV. He sticks his foot in the ground, and his foot goes up in the air. He lands and the ball hits the corner in the chest.
Yeah.
We tackle him and hold him to 3 points, but any one of those things, and that's the playoffs. I mean, that's just the way it is. You can't do that.
Yeah. Even in the wild card round, the teams that committed the fewest turnovers,
No question.
The Rams were +2. Philly was +4 that they won. Houston committed 3 turnovers, but the Chargers committed 4, so they were +1. And in the other games, Baltimore and Buffalo, neither team had a turnover. So it definitely pays to take care of the football. Well, we'll take a break here, and we've got conference championship games on Sunday. We'll be right back.
Are you ready for a challenging and rewarding career? There are quality jobs in the construction industry.
I got out of college and my career choices were very limited, and this provided me with a plan for the present and the future at the same time.
I actually have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and I was making less than I make as a first-year apprentice painter.
I didn't go to college. I have no college debt. I make more money than the majority of people I know that went to college.
Take your first step towards a rewarding career. Visit stlouispdf.org.
We are back. Mike, 25 years ago, this week, I guess, I don't know if the calendar was exactly aligned, but your St. Louis Rams played Tampa Bay in the NFC title game, 11-6 victory. What are your memories of that?
It was very hard to figure them out on defense. I hadn't seen that defense before. We felt like we'd run the ball on the edges and put their corners in position because the defensive front was substantial and the linebackers were really good.
Mm-hmm.
So we tried to put the ball on the edge, and they cheated their corners inside. And as soon as the ball showed, they just released unblocked on the back, on Marshall. So that we had a lot of runs like that we had to throw away because their adjustment at corner, they figured it out. They knew what we were going to do somehow. But we got going. We made enough plays to score some points, but we had a mix-up on a third down throw with Ricky Prohl that would have got us in position to score. He ran the route shallower than Kurt thought he was going to run it, and Kurt threw it, and they picked it. And then they made a real nice pick on a throw to Torrey, a skinny post, as we call it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think I had a very good game plan for them. I didn't really understand that defense well enough, and I don't think I had a player saved us on this thing because that was a miserable plan. We made just a few plays there and were able to win it, but very fortunate.
Yeah, that Tampa 2 kind of became a lot of teams imitated that with the success of.
It was not just the Tampa 2, but the guys playing it. They knew it inside and out. And okay, you have that front four that they had. Probably doesn't make any difference what you run behind it, but it was hard to figure it out. And after that, after being in it a little bit, then it became very simple. But the key to that thing is they're down 4. Were substantial, and they made it really difficult to throw the ball at all.
Yeah, Simeon Rice, Warren Sapp, they had some talent.
Yeah, they did
up front. Some great linebackers, Derek Brooks, Rondé Barber in the secondary. A lot of current and future Hall of Famers on that defense. But Ricky Prohl saves the day. Your offense, even though obviously. You had the headliners, you had Falk and Bruce and Holt, but you spread the ball around. Everyone had a chance, as the current saying is, had a chance to eat. He had not caught a touchdown pass the entire season. You guys had scored entering that game, maybe, I don't know, close to 70 touchdowns you'd scored in that season, and he makes a tremendous catch. Don't tell me you remember the play. Of course you do, right? I mean, what the play call was.
Yeah, I can tell you what it was. It was smoke 838 Z under H seam. And
of course it was. Yeah.
We were going to throw Isaac a little spin around route and clear it out with Marshall inside. And if he had Marshall, he was going to throw Marshall the ball against that 2-deep coverage. Or 939, I think it was. It might have been 9s on the outside. But anyway, what we always did, when they bring an extra guy weak, 4 guys weak, you don't have enough blockers for them.
Mm-hmm.
You have to throw a side adjust. Well, our side adjust all year long had been slants and hitches and spot routes. We'd never thrown a go route on.
Right.
Well, we just said, we're going to have to change it. They're too good. They're too smart. They'll sit on it. So if they bring the safety, let's just throw go route to that. Well, it was always Torrey was always a single receiver, but this is an odd formation. So ironically, it put Ricky there. So all in practice, Torrey had caught the side adjustments against that 4-week blitz that we practiced. It was never against this formation, but Ricky had to remember it. He just had to know that. And of course, Kurt, when they broke the huddle, reminded him, his to go route if it's all that kind of stuff. So they saw it and they hit it. The rest is history.
And what a catch. Brian Kelly, the Tampa Bay defender, he's tugging on Ricky. Ricky kind of pins the ball, I think, against his side, against his hip. And then he has to come down and get his feet in bounds. That was just an incredible catch by Ricky Prohl.
It was, but it was an incredible throw too. I mean, he put it dropped it right on top of him, which is right where you want him to put it.
Yeah. Very physical game, Mike. I remember, who was the guard's name? Frank Middleton came by your locker room after the game. He wanted to fight some of your players. I was just leaving the locker room after the interviews were done, and he was there looking for trouble. It was
there's, people don't realize this, and the league never did anything about it, but I stayed up in the box for a while after the game and watched the stage come out and all that kind of stuff. And there were probably a dozen fights out perimeter on the field between their players and our players.
Really?
It was at Donnybrook. We had a bunch of guys. They came back out of the locker room to fight our guys.
See, because the reporters were heading down the elevator, even the ones that are on the field, they're heading in for the press conference. So I didn't see any of that.
Yeah, I was amazed that nothing was ever said of it. And we had it on tape too, game tape.
Really?
Yeah, we did. But, the league's never going to say anything about it because they want people to know about it. But there was some ugly fights going on.
Yeah.
I was shocked. Somebody's got to stop this. They had police trying to get in between some guys, but it was they were sure they were going to beat us.
Yeah.
And when they lost, they just didn't take it very well, obviously.
Well, and again, I'm sure you were heavy favorites. I'm sure you would have liked to win by more, but I think it showed. I remember it clear as day. Everybody, the Rams were a finesse team. Well, that wasn't a finesse game.
No,
that was a slugfest, and you were able to win such a game.
Yeah. Yeah. Ernie Zampese told me a long time ago. He said, if you're going to be a champion, it's not about scoring a lot of points. Sometimes you got to beat them 10-7. That kind of a thing.
And that was just about it. 11-6, an odd score. Championship Sunday, the early game, 2 p.m. Central Time on Fox. Commanders, they've won 7 in a row. A lot of those 7 coming right down to the wire. They're 14-5 at the Eagles. Eagles are the second seed, 16-3. The Eagles are 10-1 at home. The Commanders have been pretty good away from home. 7-3, the Commanders are away from home. Eagles are a 6-point favorite. They opened the week at 5.5. It's since moved up to 6 points. The teams met twice, obviously. NFC East battle on December 22nd in the D.C. area. Washington won 36-33. Jaden Daniels threw 5 touchdown passes, including the game winner with 6 seconds left. That game ended a 10-game winning streak for Philadelphia. I remember you and I talking about it, though. I think we both thought had Jalen Hurts not suffered a concussion in the first quarter, that probably the Eagles would have taken care of it. Interestingly, so he suffered a concussion there, and they held him out of the regular season finale. When they met earlier in the season, mid-November, November 15th to be exact, in Philadelphia, Hurts was evaluated for a concussion in the second quarter, but he stayed in the game. Philly won that 26-18. This was a much anticipated game because it was for the winner would take over the lead in the NFC East. Washington actually led in that game 10-6 entering the fourth quarter. The Eagles then took a 12-10 lead, and they were in Washington was in field goal range. Remember, Dan Quinn went for it on 4th and 2, but Daniels was stopped for no gain, and a couple plays later, Barkley scored. So interesting games in the season. Eagles favored in this one. Mike, your thoughts here?
I just think Washington's a little bit like New England in '99. They're on a run coming down the end of the season, and that quarterback he's just at a different level right now than everybody else. He's able to see and do. And the thing that surprised me was how good they played on defense last week.
Yes.
I just never thought they had that in it, but he's done a great job getting them ready. I really didn't think they'd hold up, but they did. You got to think, to me, I just think they're going to win this. I do. I just think they'll win this game.
Yeah, and the McLaurin, and I haven't seen, honestly, I've only seen Washington play about 5 times every game they play, but McLaurin is pretty good. The more I see him, the more I like him. I think it's helped that Austin Eckler's come back. He's more of a third down back, but remember, he missed almost all of December with a concussion, so he's come back. He's helped. And then is it De'Ami Brown? He actually leads them in receiving in the playoff. He's got, in the 2 games, he's got 187 yards receiving. So they've got a little more versatility on offense than they've had for much of the season, Mike.
Yeah, and I think Eckler will have a bigger role than what you think in this game. I really think that he might end up being the difference between the two teams. Some of the plays that he can make. He had a little pass he took. Well, it was a big gain. He didn't score on it, but he just is a hard guy to stop. When he's at the Chargers, he's amazing.
Yeah. Now the Eagles, Philly fans are always worrying about something, and Jalen Hurts has only passed for 259 yards total in the 2 games they played. So it's like 130 yards per game. The the two receivers, Brown and Smith, they only have combined. This is in the two playoff games. They only have 100 yards receiving, only one catch more than 11 yards. Can Philly pass the ball if they need to, or?
I don't think so. I don't. I think there's something wrong with Hurts. He just doesn't look like he's physically okay to me. He's going to hold the ball. He's going to hold the ball, and they'll rely on the running game. If they can shut that running game down or at least contain it, I think Washington's got a hell of a chance here. And I don't think neither one of those receivers are playing very well. They're just not.
Now they've got their tight end back, like Eckler. He was hurt late in the year, but came back, I think, week 18, Dallas Goedert, and he's helped out. He's had 8 catches in the playoffs and a touchdown. But I guess the key, it sounds cliche, but if they can they don't even have to totally stop. If they can just kind of keep the lid on Barkley, I think Washington has a real chance, huh?
I do too. Yeah, I think that they'll find a way to get this thing done. I just don't like everything's riding on Barkley. In the past, Hurts has kind of pulled him through, and I just don't know that he can do it right now. Neither one of the receivers are playing good to me, and maybe they play their best games. I don't know, but defensively, they've really improved as the season's gone on. So they'll have their, they've seen him twice, and I think Dan will have a good package for him on defense. They'll take away the running game and make him throw the football.
Yeah. Now Philly's defense is, they've been really, really good. They're one of the top teams. I think they're first in total defense and passing defense, second in scoring defense. But we're saying that, hell, Daniels threw 5 touchdown passes against them last time. So you're going Commanders. I think I'm going to go Commanders too. I don't know. The vibes just don't seem right for Philly. And Jalen Hurts, he was limited in practice Wednesday. That knee, he came out of that game, that knee is bothering him. And obviously that'll affect him running the ball too, won't it, Mike?
It will. And just watch him try to run with it here last week. He was hobbling around pretty good. He looked bad. So, and he's a guy that wants to hold the ball. And I just think they'll have a good plan for him.
Okay, so we're both taking the Commanders. We're taking the road team. The second game on Sunday, CBS, 5:30 Central. The Bills, 15-4 overall. That's regular season and playoffs included. Second seed at the Chiefs, top seed, 16-2. Chiefs are 9-0 at home, so there are only 2 losses that come on the road. Chiefs are a 2-point favorite, Mike.
Yeah, it's an emotional pick for me because you want Buffalo to win in the worst way after years ago the 0-4 deal. But and I love the quarterback. I like who he is. I just love everything about the guy. High energy. He's humble. The coordinator's done a great job with him. Defensively, they're going to have a hard time a little bit. But Kansas City's just been blah on offense. And Mahomes, this is his worst year by far.
Right.
They'll try to run the ball on him, and people have. They got the linebacker back, but they're just small up front.
Yeah.
I'm a little concerned about Buffalo holding up against them, but really, I know defensively Kansas City is going to give them some problems in the protections, but they run the ball so well that's going to put pressure on Kansas City because the one thing that runs you out of all those blitzes is a team that can run the ball well.
Yeah. That teams met November 18th in Buffalo. The Bills won that 30-21. It was the Chiefs' first loss of the season. They were, I think, 9-0, and they had won 15 straight overall. Mike and I, we both picked the Bills in that game. Of course, I picked against the Chiefs several times this year and been wrong all but that one game. But Josh Allen, he made that. Remember, it was 4th and 2.
Yeah,
it was like he made a 26-yard run, and that sealed the victory. And for all the concerns about the Bills' defense, the Chiefs had what was then a season low. They had only 259 yards of offense in that game. Now, Allen is 4-4 versus Kansas City, which is pretty good, all things considered. But I think all 4 of those wins were in the regular season. Buffalo, their season has been ended 3 times in the playoffs in the last 4 years by KC. Is this the year it ends, Mike? Are you going with Buffalo?
Yeah, I think so. I'm going to go with Buffalo. I just think it's a different team right now. Mm-hmm. with the running back emergence and the different coordinator, I think it's just different for Buffalo all the way. They're not as good on defense as they've been, but Kansas City's not as good on offense as they've been either.
No, and I was surprised, at least for much of the game, how stout the Bills, I'll say stout, was against the Ravens, and even Derrick Henry. The Chiefs don't run the ball anywhere close to how the Ravens do. I mean, they got Pacheco, they got Kareem Hunt, but they're not a good running team.
No, they're not. They don't really do a good job with it. I think, and I don't mean this in a crass way, but they got to beat the officials too. So they overcome that, because that'll definitely be in the Chiefs. The things that have happened on the Chiefs' behalf in the last 4 or 5 weeks is laughable. You know, they're clearly, the NFL wants them to be a repeat. You know, and that's nothing against that team or Andy. That is a great football team, great coach, but you know, some of the things that happen now, it should have never happened.
I'm going to circle back to our point we made during the Ask Mike segment, the middle segment, about how key turnovers are. Josh Allen this year, only 6 interceptions, only 2 fumbles lost. So that's 8 turnovers. Mike, I did some numbers crunching. In his entire career prior to this season, he'd averaged 17 turnovers a year, fumbles lost and interceptions. So he's cut that by more than half. Buffalo, counting the playoffs now, is plus 27 in giveaway margin. I heard one of these so-called experts say that, boy, the Buffalo was lucky to beat the Ravens. The Ravens were the better team. Hey, getting turnovers is part of playing a good game, and they were plus 3 in that game.
It is,
and they're plus 27. Now, I will say this. We all know Mahomes, he threw some interceptions earlier this season, but he's been pretty good since that first Buffalo game, that regular season game. He hasn't thrown an interception in the last 7 games or had a fumble. But, you know, the Bills have a way of getting the ball out.
The difference between Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes, the biggest difference is Mahomes is at his best in big games. You know, when things are on the line, he just shines, and like nobody that I've ever seen in the game, to be honest with you. I mean, you're down 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, and he's going to get the ball. You're standing on the other sideline, you're just hoping, holding your breath. He's that good. I mean, he's won so many games like this, and you know, so they just have to keep pace with them and just outpace them. And defensively, if they can shut them down, but this is not the offense that they've had in the past. It just isn't.
No,
Kelsey he'll be a big target for him, but I just think they win it. I do.
I am so torn on this game because, again, I've picked against the Chiefs maybe at least a half dozen times this year and been wrong all but once. But I just think it's the Bills' time. So, Mike, you and I, crazy as it sounds, we're picking the road teams to win both of these games.
Yeah, well, you know what? That's the NFL today. You know, just the way it is.
So, Championship Sunday, you'll be watching from sunny Southern California, huh? Do you have a little Super Bowl party, or you just like to watch the game by yourself and zone in?
No, I'm at my son's house, so I'm sure we'll be watching it and be excited about it. So, no, it'll be a great day, and looking forward to it.
All right, well, that wraps it up. We have just one more show left. We will, next Thursday on Talking Football, we will wrap up the conference championship games and preview the Super Bowl. Mike, as always, it's a blast. We'll see you next week on Talking Football.